Hi folks, welcome back to the Hoard. And lastly, well, let's see, what am I up to today? I told you about the saw I had to fix. I did fix the Chicago electric, and probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this welder off to my son's house. That way, if I'm out there visiting with him and I'm offered some kind of welding job, or I need to put something together for him, I'll have it there to do. I added another shelf, right, a lower shelf. Right, that shelf was already there. But I put up a lower shelf, and I set the height so that if I lean in, my head doesn't hit it. I cleared off this cart, and I got the lift underneath the Lakota, and I got the jack underneath there. It's just cleaning up stuff, so not exactly exciting, except it needs to be done. You'll see some actual airspace underneath here, and places coming along. Anyway, I had to go to one of the local lumber yards to pick these up, and while I was there, this is kind of more of an upscale lumber yard. If you buy enough lumber as a contractor, their prices are actually pretty good. But if you're your standard homeowner in there that goes in there for cabinets or whatever you go in there for, it's more of the upper end stuff. It's more for the folks who show up and really don't care how much money they spend. They just want it to look like this, and they don't care if it costs $1 or $1 million. They could afford it. Anyway, while I was there, they throw away a lot of this kind of stuff. This is a rack for flags. Right. And what I like about it is it comes apart in pieces. Like you can see, this is one piece and it's screwed together. And then once that's off, this top piece is one piece in square, and then so forth. So it's a bunch of cubes of metal already made up, and there were a bunch of I call these straps alongside of it. I like this kind. They come in handy, and you could see they're probably all, I don't know, 5-6 foot long. There were also a bunch of these big rubber bands, and I want to get those in out of the sun, because in the sun you can kind of smell them, which means they're outgassing, which means it won't be long before there's no elastic left to them. Those are just the small pieces. This is a piece of just masonite. Was this hunk? Looks like number one. I think it's ash or something. I don't think it's pine. And what I really want looking for is pallets. I like to get pallets that have plywood on them, and this is double-sided plywood. It's probably about, I don't know, 32 by 40 inches if I had to guess. Almost 3 foot by 4 foot, probably just a little less than that. I like the plywood is 3/4. It's not a great plywood. It's kind of a hardwood plywood. Let's go on this side. That way the sun is less of an issue. But you can see it's pretty thick compared to my thumb, right? So plywood for shelving and other project, always handy. So, Harvey likes his free stuff. I still have to do some sorting and put those into action. When I was a kid growing up, they had a landfill, I don't know, a couple miles from the house. and I used to love to go there on Saturdays. I made friends with the old German guy, Mr. Meyer, who owned the place, and he would let me take whatever I want out of there. As a matter of fact, he would have trouble with his bulldozer back in the day. I guess it was probably fairly worn out, and he would end up with stuff, dirt, clay, even garbage, kind of messing up his tracks. It would kind of grind up in the gear, and it would throw a track if he wasn't careful. So he would pay me a buck to, he had this hooked piece of metal that I would clear the tracks with. He would pay me a buck to do that. I'm going back to like the 72 time frame, 73. 1972 or 73, not 1872 or 73. And that was actually pretty decent money. It would take me about 15 minutes, a half hour, and so I was making that big $2 an hour back then. I think minimum wage back then was $1.60 or less. So if there was such a thing as minimum wage back then, so it would really be helpful. I'd get on my bicycle, take a ride over to Myers Dump, and have my pick of whatever I wanted. And back then, if you put your hot little hands on an engine like this, I mean, you went home a happy kid, right? If you picked up one of these, you were absolutely thrilled. So if you brought that home. And I would, rope it to my bicycle one way or the other, and get it home, because what could you do? You didn't call your mother up and say, hey, could you go to the dump with me and help me carry something home? That didn't happen. So I would rope up whatever my finding was to the bicycle, or if it was too heavy, what I would do is, there was quite a bit of woods between me and Mayor's Dump. And I would walk it, carry it, drag it, whatever I had to do, I'd get it and hide it in the woods, and then come back later with a wagon or something and drag it on home. So I've always liked the free stuff. I've always been a big one for exploring. That's probably why I have such a flea market fetish. About the fetish on these things, I had a Honda 50. I got that while I was in high school. My parents didn't let me keep it, so once I was able to keep things, and I really liked that Honda 50. Better than a girlfriend, guys. Less trouble, less expensive. It doesn't give you all the same grief. For you young men out there, go get yourself a Honda. Anyway, so I had to get rid of it, and I couldn't get it back again. So I got rid of that bike probably 73 time frame, 74. I had it only for a short period of time, and then I wasn't able to buy my first 70 until the fall of 81, my Mini Trail 70. So I kind of didn't have one for several years. And then once I discovered I could buy them and I could get them reasonably, then, why not buy a lot of them? And why not buy them for spare parts? As you try to buy spare parts for Hondas, especially back then, you were able to get a whole bike for $50 or less. Some of them I paid $10, $15 for. It was a lot cheaper to buy a whole bike than it was to get spare parts. So then came the horde of Honda, 50s and 70s and 90s. And then, the three-wheelers kind of started. Really didn't get too much into the quads until later. I think it was really the 90s before the quads started to show up. Anyway, I'm babbling. Ignore me. Anyway, folks, I want to thank you all for watching and commenting and subscribing. Remember to keep your feet down, keep your head up, and get out there and enjoy all your days. And if possible, bring home some free stuff. It's always fun to find free toys to play with. Bye now, folks.